Hello, and welcome to the New York Baltic Film Festival and this year's virtual edition. It is a pleasure to welcome viewers from all over the US as we adapt to this new format instead of just the New York audience. Established in 2018, the New York Baltic Film Festival is presented by Scandinavia House and is organized by the Consul Generals of Estonia, Consul Generals of Lithuania, and the Consulate of Latvia in New York. And financial support is provided by the Estonian Film Institute, the National Film Center of Latvia, and the Lithuanian Film Center, with additional sponsorship by the Lithuanian Cultural Institute, the American Latvia Association, and Latvia 100. Today we are speaking with Jūle Rozīte, the head of the programs for the festival, and director Rain Rannu, the director of the Estonian comedy Chasing Unicorns, which is in the Laugh and Cry section of the festival, screening during the first weekend. The festival is divided into 3 sections, and the second section is Stress and Release, screening October 29 through November 1st. And the festival concludes with the last weekend, Looking Inward and Forward Baltic Showcase on November 12th and 15th. So we hope you can watch all 9 films in this year's festival. Now, please welcome Jūle and Rain.
Hello.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, as Kyle mentioned, I'm the head of programs for the festival, and we're getting adapted to this new format this year. So the Q&As will be more like Q&A conversations between me and the directors, and will be made available on the website. And since you're watching this, you will probably have just seen Chasing Unicorns. If not, then there might be a few spoilers in here, so you might wait until after. But yeah, as Kyle mentioned as well, like we have director Rain Rannu with us, and we're gonna kick off with a little conversation. So I'll introduce Rain quickly. So apart from being a filmmaker, he's a technology entrepreneur and investor, and this is his second feature-length film. And together with producer Tauno Hiielaid, Rain is the founder of the indie film company California. So hi, Rain. We're really excited to kick this series off with Chasing Unicorns in the Baltic comedy section. So maybe first things first, where are you currently located?
I'm in Tallinn, Estonia, at my home.
And how have the COVID-19 restrictions in Estonia affected your work, both artistically and your business?
Well, artistically, it's been pretty good actually, because when we had a lockdown, I managed to write parts of a new film. And when the restrictions were lifted in the summer, we were actually able to shoot another movie in August. So in Estonia, yeah, it worked out, even when it wouldn't have worked out in the US. So we had quite a few actors traveling internationally, including from US. And after the shoot was over, they didn't want to go back. Because
good thing for Estonia, maybe you can suck up all that talent.
Yeah.
So you said you finished a film in August, or
yeah, shooting. It's my next movie.
Okay. That was going to be my last question, but maybe we can start with that. Could you give a little outline of what that's about, or is it still kind of under wraps?
Yeah, I mean, it is in some ways similar, but in some ways very different from this movie. The primary topic I'm interested in is AI and certain manifestations of AI. So I hope it's going to be engaging and fun, and I hope to have it out late next year.
Okay. Hopefully at our festival. No, we'll see. So tell me about the inspiration for Chasing Unicorns. Where did it come from? I mean, obviously you work in the industry, but like, what is it that popped out that you felt needed to be made into film?
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell stories about the worlds and things that I have personal experience in, because I feel that the movies are more authentic if they are built on reality. And Estonia is known all around the world for our technology startups like Skype that was developed here, TransferWise, Pipedrive, my own company Fortuma. And I knew that there will be a movie about Estonian startups because it's such a big part of us. And so I thought that why not make it myself?
And so since this is your second feature-length film, how did you decide to take the step into the film world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, at some point running the tech startups, it became a bit more technical, and I always had this creative urge. And since If I wanted to become a painter, I would have to really, know how to paint. If I wanted to be a musician, I would have to really, learn how to compose music. But with filmmaking, it's actually a bit different, because in filmmaking, you can assemble a great team around you. And you as a director, you don't necessarily have to be a domain expert in any of the specific things, but you're more like leader or a startup founder coming from my world, where you can, create some cool stuff together with other people. And that was fascinating about filmmaking, but which I really loved.
Okay, interesting. And what film, were there any films that you were inspired by? Anything in Estonia that or abroad maybe, that you thought you wanted to copy the style or the storytelling or something?
Nothing specific. I mean, I watch quite a lot of movies, but I've always wanted to kind of find my own style. So, I mean, obviously, there are elements that, are copied, the elements that I invented, but I really hope to find my own style and my own voice. But I'm very much drawn into the authenticity and the reality. And then I want to take things that are real and maybe give my own spin on it or my own stylization on it and on top of it. So that's kind of how I approach filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. So the setting and the characters and the little things that happen to them felt very detailed. And obviously, that industry very well, and you could really feel it. And, even like the little things or the little failures or the little humiliations or something just felt so real. How much of it was, were there any anecdotes? Have you experienced any of that literally yourself? Are any of the characters like based on real people or?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. And a lot of the things in the movie are based on real things that have happened to not only myself, but many other startup entrepreneurs and investors in Estonia and elsewhere. So when I started writing it, I invited a lot of my friends in the startup industry for lunch, and then I interviewed them and I asked specifically about, different things, and I learned so much, and a lot of it ended up in the movie. And a lot of characters are also to a degree based on real people. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if people in Estonia see the angel investor Kuusela, then they specifically know that person because he's also a very active person in Estonia. And a lot of the other things are more subtle and more composites, but it's based a lot on reality.
I liked how you were able to capture the kind of casual sexism that women face in the industry without making it like, I don't know, without victimizing the character and without it necessarily being the focus of the film, because it's not necessarily the focus of someone's life. And I thought that was very cool that you were able to. Is that something that unfortunately happens? Does it really happen as much as like, did women have those kind of stories?
Well, yeah, I mean, the stories in the movie actually are quite real. I mean, they have happened to female founders from Estonia. I don't know how much it happens. I mean, I don't think it's something that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. But of course, the tech industry itself is still very male dominated. Like almost, I think at least 80% of the investors and a majority of founders are male. And I kind of wanted to address that to a degree, but yes, in a way that it wouldn't be the main point of the movie, because it isn't, but I wanted it to be authentic representation of the startup world and technology world with all these good sides and bad sides as well.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a cameo by the former prime minister. It feels like almost a cliche about a small country that you can just pick up the phone and you have the president, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the president actually turned it down. So the prime minister was our second choice, but it worked out super well. And Taavi Rõivas did a very, very nice role. The story is actually partly also based on a true story. It's not the prime minister, but we had a former United States ambassador to Estonia. who was here for 4 years, and after his ambassador's term was over, he was actually, he decided to join one of the Estonian startups. And he was a guy, he was about to retire, but he loved Estonia so much that he decided that, okay, he will move back to California, but two days a week he would serve as a customer service for one of the Estonian startups. So that's a real story behind it. And
really a good career move.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next question about the US and Estonia. What is your experience of life in America? You've obviously traveled there a lot. Have you ever lived there? Have you spent a lot of time there?
I have lived actually in Silicon Valley for 3 years. And I traveled there a lot, and a lot of the companies I worked with in my business career are in US and from US relations. And yeah, I think there's an interesting thing happening in startup world, which I also addressed in the movie, is that if you wanted to build a global company, then 20 years ago, if it was in technology, you pretty much had to go through Silicon Valley, and there was no other way. But now, what we are increasingly seeing over the next 5-10 years, last 5-10 years, is that that this knowledge and this experience has traveled globally. So to build a really successful new technology product, you don't have to be in Silicon Valley anymore. You can do it from anywhere, from Estonia, from Latvia, from Sweden, from Asia, and there are so many of these startups being built elsewhere. And I think it's an amazing and great thing. And yeah, Estonia has been very lucky in regards that we have done very well, but it can happen anywhere.
Right. And I feel like you portray the cultural differences very well. And I think that there's still, like, both countries still have a lot of stereotypes about one another, which are partly true, but partly, exaggerated, like the kind of American dream and the streets are paved of gold kind of, which I think that you managed to capture very well with, homelessness in San Francisco or something like that. But you obviously are still in Estonia. So what is it that you see there that are like, what draws you to Estonia if you do have the ability to be in America? Like, what is it that you see as unique there in terms of your filmmaking or your other career?
Yeah, there are a lot of things actually, and I think that having the ability to travel everywhere, which this year has been difficult, but overall is been good enough, is you don't have to live in US or in Silicon Valley to do a startup. You don't have to live in LA to do movies. You can do those anywhere. And I think here we kind of have the home field advantage of actually, being able to do things a little bit differently. Like when we were recruiting people from US to come to work in Estonia, when we have this, shitty weather and, all those things that are not maybe so bad, how we told it to Americans was that, look, it's different. And I think that is something that is important in startups. If you want to be successful globally, you have to be different. And our hypothesis is that it's the same for movies. If you want to make interesting movies, you have to do, as a newcomer, you have to do things differently than the establishment or that is used to done in the industry. And and it kind of helps that you are from a place that is different, because then you have different stories and different experiences than everybody else does. And I professionally love it a lot, and personally, I really enjoy living in Estonia.
No, that's a good sentiment, because I do feel that a lot of times people try and copy or mimic or think that things are better somewhere else, but it's refreshing to hear that kind of standing firm in difference and not trying to pretend that you're something else. So yeah, and did you personally, this is maybe like going back a little, did you personally, do you have any stories of culture shock, like when you first went there, or like, was it like in the movie, or were you more, is it kind of exaggerated, or what would your American like employees say when they got to Estonia? Like, I know you told them it's going to be different, but like, was there kind of a culture shock there too?
I mean, always there are little those things, yeah. I mean, I think I remember first time I went to Silicon Valley, I was like, okay, what is it? Like this parking lots, there's a road, there's like, I thought it was like something big and, you know, very, very different and only the tech companies, but it was very regular American suburb at first glance. So for me, I think that was the first experience. But for many Estonian startups, the stories I portrayed in the movie are actually very similar to their first experience. Is that, you know, Americans are great at selling themselves, and, you know, there's this big vision of the American dream that awaits you in Silicon Valley or anywhere in America. But basically the reality is pretty simple, kind of like the dorm room that our founders ended up spending the night. So there's a lot of these kinds of contrasts, both in terms of, you know, expectations and reality, but also within American in Silicon Valley, you have the richest companies in the world, and then 2 streets over, you have like 50 homeless people, and you know that's very real that you see there, and I kind of wanted to capture that in the movie.
So maybe bringing it back more to the film and to the actors that you chose. Can you talk about the, I don't know, the audition process, or because I felt like they fit their roles so organically, like did you kind of write with them in mind, or how did you come upon these actors?
No, actually, I didn't write with them in mind. And we had castings in Estonia, and we had quite a few options, but one of the reasons why we ended up with these 2 main characters was that they had a very, very strong chemistry with each other. That was very much evident in the rehearsals already. So that was a main, very important factor why we ended up with these people. So yeah, and I think that worked very well, because even for people who see the movie, who know nothing about startups, who don't care about startups, they still often enjoy the movie, because the 2 main characters are something that they relate to and they can understand and identify with. So we were very lucky to have that.
Yeah. Cool. I think that we've covered most of the bases. The last thing I just want to ask is about this virtual format. In the beginning, before we started this conversation, you mentioned that you've done quite a lot of digital online Q&As already. So what is this for? And do you kind of like this format, or do you miss meeting people? And
both great. I mean, physical festivals are, I mean, obviously it's a different experience, because you can network and mingle, and, you know, there are a lot of this community feeling that it's harder to replicate online. But yeah, during COVID, I think we've done almost 50, even more screenings to different festivals, different companies, different startups around the world. And this QA is fun, because this way actually I can talk to people that I would never have traveled to. For instance, if a company in you know, Singapore is doing a screening of the movie, then I can join in for 10 minutes for Q&A, and I can still get some experience of what they felt when they saw the movie and all that. So on the one way it's limiting, but on the other way it's actually you know, much more in startup world we use the word scalable, meaning that I can be in way more places that I wouldn't be able to be physically, and I think this is the great side of having it online.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation and the film. And yeah, good luck. I look forward to your next film.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for more, and for more information on the festival, you can please check out the websites at both scandinaviahouse.org and balticfilmfestival.org. It'll have the complete schedule there with all the films, and other Q&As will be listed there as well. So please do visit those websites, and thank you for joining us.